September 1942, Rabaul, New Britain. Thick jungle heat shimmered over the Imperial Japanese Navy's forward airbase. Mechanics in oil-stained uniforms wiped sweat from their brows as Nakajima Ki-43, Oscars, and Mitsubishi A6M Zero fighters lined the runway like a pack of sleeping predators. Inside the officers' mess, laughter rolled across the wooden floorboards.
And then he actually saluted the goose.
A young flight lieutenant had just returned from a sortie over Guadalcanal.
Every day.
The Americans,
Pass
he
me
said,
another
half
one,
grinning.
will you?
They fly
Call
that
this a
strange
fighter.
double-tailed machine. Looks like
Look
two
at it.
airplanes glued
It
together.
has two tails.
His peers burst
like
into
some
laughter.
Kind of giant
Too heavy,
flying crab.
too slow. If we see it, we'll make fireworks out of it. That strange machine was the Lockheed P-38 Lightning, a radical twin-engine, twin-boom fighter that looked unlike anything else in the sky. Even Allied pilots were skeptical at first. The press called it the fork-tailed devil. But among U.S. squadrons, many whispered it was a diva,
If we reinforce
hard to handle,
the spar
prone
right
to engine
here,
problems,
we
and
can
sluggish
reduce the
in
wing
tight
loading.
turns.
But that adds
At
weight
Wright
to
Field
the
in
twin
Ohio,
boom structure.
engineers had designed the Lightning to climb fast, strike hard, and fly farther than any single-seat fighter ever had. But against the nimble Japanese Zeros, its reputation had yet to be proven. Thousands of miles away, at Henderson Field on Guadalcanal, American pilots faced a grim reality.
Look at her
The
go.
Japanese dominated the air in
calling it
speed,
the fork-tailed
maneuverability,
devil.
and experience.
Shocks the axis.
Many U.S. flyers didn't expect to
I'll
live
drink
long
to
enough
that.
to see the P-38's true potential.
Incoming mail. Take
Major
cover.
Thomas
Move
Lanfear,
it.
a bold and outspoken pilot with the
Get
339th
this
Fighter
crate
Squadron,
open now. We need
once
those
joked,
rounds.
"This thing handles like a dump truck,
So I
but
told
if
him,
it ever hits you,
if this
God
lightning
help you."
can't outrun the Zeros,
He didn't yet know
at
how
least it
prophetic
makes
those
a
words
great
would become.
coffee warmer.
The Lightning's twin Allison engines roared like thunder, its turbo superchargers screaming as it climbed to heights no Zero could reach. It wasn't meant to dance. It was meant to hunt. By late 1942, the U.S. was desperate for an edge. In the South Pacific, Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto, the man who had planned Pearl Harbor, still orchestrated Japan's movements with meticulous precision. His command sent men to their deaths with clockwork efficiency. Every American loss seemed to whisper the same bitter truth. Japan still held the initiative. But war changes quickly. In the months ahead, the same awkward P-38 that Japanese pilots mocked would fly faster, higher, and farther than any aircraft in the Pacific, and bring death to the very man who had once unleashed hell upon Pearl Harbor. April 13th, 1943. Pearl Harbor, Hawaii. A
We
humid
are
dawn
committing
crept
the
over the
carrier
harbor that
group
had
to
once burned in
support the
December
Guadalcanal
1941.
landing.
Battleships
This
still
pushes
lay
our air
scarred and
cover
half sunken,
right to the edge.
their rusted hulls serving as silent memorials. But above them, the mood had changed. The United States was no longer stunned. It was awakening. Inside a small, windowless building on Ford Island, intelligence officers gathered around a table littered with intercepted Japanese radio transmissions. Among them sat Lieutenant Commander Layton, head of intelligence
We
for
need
Admiral
this bird
Nimitz.
ready by
He
0400.
slid a decrypted paper across the table.
Check the fuel lines
The
again.
message was brief and
Already
electrifying.
on it. The ignition timing
Admiral
looks
Yamamoto
good.
will inspect forward bases at Bougainville and Balala. Arrival 9:45 a.m., April 18th. A heavy silence fell. The architect of Pearl Harbor, Japan's most revered strategist, was about to make himself a target. Admiral Chester Nimitz leaned forward, his voice measured but sharp. "If we can get him," he said, "we change the course of this war." The message had been intercepted thanks to the U.S. Navy's cryptographic unit, Station HIPO, which had broken Japan's JN-25 code months earlier. But to use this intelligence meant revealing to Japan that their codes were compromised. A dangerous gamble. In Washington, the debate was fierce. Admiral William F. Halsey argued that Yamamoto's death would be a moral victory, a strike at the heart of Japan's command. Others warned it would cost pilots lives and possibly their intelligence advantage. President Roosevelt's order came quietly,
any longer.
without ceremony.
We must strike now.
Get
before
Yamamoto.
they consolidate their position on the island.
At Henderson Field, Guadalcanal, the 339th Fighter Squadron was briefed in secrecy. Major John Mitchell, commanding officer of the P-38s, stood before his men, tracing a route
All right,
across a map
easy now.
pinned
Watch
to
your
the wall.
fingers.
Boys, this isn't another patrol, he began.
She's seated.
We're going after a
Lock
big
her down.
fish, Admiral Yamamoto himself. Gasps filled the room. Yamamoto was a name every American pilot knew. The man who'd orchestrated the death of thousands at Pearl Harbor.
Secure, sir.
Now, fate had offered a chance
Very
to
good.
strike back.
Stand by for takeoff.
The mission would be called Operation Vengeance. The plan was
All
audacious,
systems green,
bordering on
Captain.
suicidal. The P-38 Lightnings
your
would
fuel
fly
and arms.
435
Clear for
miles
taxi.
one way across open ocean from Guadalcanal to Bougainville,
Your
beyond the
ingress
range
route will
of any
follow
other
this
Allied
vector
fighter.
here, steering
They'd
clear
have to
of the
navigate
Empress
by dead
Augusta Bay
reckoning,
defenses.
hit the exact minute
Primary
Yamamoto's
target
aircraft
is
appeared,
Kahili Drome.
and fight their way out with no fuel to spare.
Our target
Mitchell's squadron
is
gathered around the
Yamamoto.
gleaming silver lightnings at dawn. The aircraft had been stripped of excess weight, fitted with drop
All
tanks
right,
for extra
easy now.
range,
Watch your fingers.
and tuned for one purpose: speed. Landfear,
She's
now part of the
seated.
mission flight,
Lock her
grinned
down.
at his wingman, Rex Barber. They laughed at this plane, he said, slapping the fuselage. Let's show them what it can really do. Engines coughed to life, then roared in unison. The propellers blurred, kicking up clouds of coral dust. The sound filled the morning air like an approaching storm. As the P-38s lifted off the runway and banked toward the endless blue, few knew that history was unfolding beneath their wings. Somewhere out there, hundreds of miles ahead, Yamamoto's transport, a Mitsubishi G4M Betty bomber, had already taken off, flanked by 6 Zero escorts. In 1 hour, their paths would cross, and one of them would not return. April 18, 1943, 7:00 a.m., Guadalcanal. The sun had barely cleared the horizon when the 16 P-38 Lightnings lifted off
Clear
from
on this
Henderson
side.
Field.
All green,
Their silver
Lieutenant.
fuselages shimmered like knives slicing through the dawn haze.
Start up
Each
in
pilot
5.
knew the stakes. One navigational mistake, and they'd run out of fuel over the endless Pacific. There would be no rescue. At the head of the formation, Major John Mitchell kept his eyes fixed on the compass. His cockpit was cramped, hot, and vibrating from the deep growl of twin Allison engines. Below him, only a vast sheet of ocean stretched to infinity. The radio crackled. All ships in formation, check in. One by one, calm voices responded. 2, Roger. 3, Roger. 4, all green. Far behind them, Guadalcanal faded into a faint shadow. Ahead, somewhere beyond the horizon, was the island of Bougainville and the flight path of Admiral Yamamoto.
Radio check.
Mitchell's
Over.
calculations were surgical. Based on the decrypted message, Yamamoto's Mitsubishi G4M Betty bomber would be over southern Bougainville at precisely 9:45 a.m. They had to intercept him to the minute. If they were early, they risked being spotted by Japanese patrols. If they were late, he'd already be gone. Every minute mattered. At 8:30 a.m., the formation split. 4 P-38s, Lanfear, Barber, Holmes, and Hine, would act as the killer flight, diving on Yamamoto's transport. The rest would climb above and form a top cover, ready to engage enemy fighters. The air grew turbulent as they approached Bougainville's volcanic coast. Below, the green jungle canopy stretched unbroken, except for a few clearings where Japanese airstrips gleamed under the tropical sun. Mitchell looked down at his watch. 9:34 a.m. They were on schedule, but dangerously low on fuel. Then, through the thin clouds, Barber spotted movement. "Tally-ho!" he shouted into his headset. "Two Betty bombers. Low, 11 o'clock. Lanfear's heart hammered. He could see them now. Two dark specks gliding above the jungle, each trailed by 3 Zero escorts. One of those bombers carried Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto, Japan's most
The weather
celebrated
ahead
naval
looks
mind.
clear, Captain.
Mitchell's voice cut through the radio.
Another smooth flight.
"You're cleared to attack.
We should arrive
Go
on
get it."
schedule.
The killer flight peeled away, throttles forward. The P-38s dropped their external fuel tanks. They'd only need what was left in their mains now. Tanks tumbled into the sea and exploded on impact. At 9:43 a.m., the lightnings roared out of the clouds. The Japanese formation never saw them coming. Lanfear banked hard left, sunlight flashing off his canopy. He dove straight toward the enemy at 400 miles per hour. Behind him, Barber lined up on the lead bomber, Yamamoto's aircraft. Inside the G4M, Yamamoto sat in his crisp white uniform, calmly reviewing inspection notes. He never saw the attack. Barber's guns chattered. 850 caliber machine guns tore through the air. Tracers ripped into the bomber's right engine and fuselage. The Bettys shuddered, belching flames. Lanfear swung around to engage the escorting Zeros, firing bursts that shredded one's wing clean off. The Japanese pilots, caught by surprise, scrambled to respond. Yamamoto's bomber banked sharply, trying to evade, but it was too late. The right engine exploded. Smoke filled the cabin. The aircraft rolled onto its side and began a slow, doomed descent toward the jungle below. Through his canopy, Barber saw it happen. A pillar of black smoke rising from the trees, and then silence. "Target down," he whispered. April 18th, 1943, 9:48 a.m., Bougainville. In the cockpit of his flaming Mitsubishi G4M, Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto gripped the armrest as the right wing disintegrated in fire. Acrid smoke poured through the cabin. Crewmen shouted orders that vanished under the shriek of wind and tearing metal. The bomber lurched violently, one final groan before the jungle swallowed it whole. From below, villagers along the coast of Buin looked up to see black smoke trailing through the clear Pacific sky. Moments later, a hollow explosion rolled through the tree line. The P-38s pulled out of their dives and climbed hard toward the sea. Behind them, columns of smoke rose from the jungle canopy, one thick, black, and unmoving. Major Mitchell's voice crackled over the radio. "All units, regroup. We're heading home." No celebration, no cheers. Only silence and the sound of engines straining against exhaustion. They were still 400 miles from Guadalcanal, with barely enough fuel to make it back. On the ground hours later, Japanese search teams hacked through dense undergrowth until they found the wreckage. The twisted remains of the G4M were scattered across a small clearing, still smoldering. Among the wreckage lay the body of Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto, his katana sheathed at his side, white gloves still on his hands. He had been thrown clear of the fuselage, seated upright against a tree, as if watching the sky he had once ruled. His officers stood in silence. One whispered,
The Admiral is dead.
The Japanese High Command received the report that evening. When General Ugaki read the message, he did not speak for several minutes. The man who had conceived the strike on Pearl Harbor, who had once warned Japan's leaders that war with America would awaken a sleeping giant, was gone.
Jocks are set!
Tokyo kept the news secret for nearly a month.
Glad to be back.
But among Japan's
We're running
senior
on
officers,
fumes.
grief mixed with shock. Yamamoto's death wasn't just the loss of a commander. It was the loss of faith. Back on Guadalcanal, the men of the 339th Fighter Squadron
We
landed
encountered
one by
heavy
one,
resistance
their fuel
near the
tanks
drop
nearly
zone,
dry.
Captain. The radar
Mechanics ran
signature
out to meet
spiked
them,
right here.
faces
Did you
expectant.
confirm the secondary target?
Lanfear climbed
Negative.
down from
We
his
had to
cockpit,
divert
his
due to the
uniform
incoming.
streaked with sweat and oil. Did we get him? Someone asked. Lanfear nodded. We got him. The pilots didn't yet realize
Devil
what they had
came through
accomplished.
today.
They had just executed one of the most precise and daring intercept missions in aviation history. A mission planned down to the minute, flown beyond the edge of range, and carried out without radar, GPS, or backup. Operation Vengeance was complete. In the following days, as the intelligence reports confirmed the success, word spread quietly through Allied ranks. There was no official announcement, just a silent understanding among men who'd lost friends at Pearl Harbor. The P-38 Lightning, once mocked as ungainly and slow, had struck with surgical precision and changed the course of the Pacific War. April 19, 1943, Guadalcanal, Solomon Islands. The morning after the mission, the airfield was eerily quiet. The usual buzz of mechanics, the smell of fuel and oil, and the clatter of wrenches echoed through hangars where men worked without speaking. They all knew what had happened, but no one celebrated openly. In the officer's tent, Major John Mitchell sat hunched over a map, still replaying the mission in his head.
Reach anywhere.
Every turn, every calculation, every moment of silence over Bougainville. He'd flown hundreds of miles over open ocean
This
and brought
will
every
fill our
pilot back
men's
alive
hearts
except
with
one,
pride.
Lieutenant Hine, whose plane had vanished during the return. The cost of success was written across every weary face. When Washington received confirmation of Yamamoto's death, President Roosevelt said only, "Gentlemen, this will fill our men's hearts with pride." But there was no triumphal parade, no broadcast announcement. For security reasons, the U.S. military kept Operation Vengeance secret until June. By then, the world had already changed. In Tokyo, Yamamoto's funeral was held with full state honors. His ashes were placed in a black urn carried through silent ranks of officers. Emperor Hirohito himself bowed before the man who had once guided Japan's greatest
This new
victories.
patrol route takes
But
us
even in
wider
reverence,
around New Georgia.
There was fear.
It adds time.
Fear that the
but it
Americans
should
could
keep
strike
us clear
anywhere,
of their main cap.
even at the heart of Japan's military command. For the Allies, the mission was more than revenge. It was proof that Japan's war machine could be outsmarted, outrun, and undone by courage, precision, and intelligence. The P-38 Lightning, once ridiculed as too heavy, too slow, was now a legend. Its long range, deadly firepower, and twin-engine resilience made it the perfect predator of the Pacific. It hunted Japanese bombers, strafed airfields, and escorted bombers deep into enemy territory. The Japanese, who once laughed at its ungainly design, now feared the unmistakable silhouette of its twin booms cutting across the clouds. Pilot Rex Barber, who had fired the fatal shots, returned to duty almost immediately. Years later, when asked what he felt that day, he answered quietly, "It wasn't about revenge. It was about duty. We were told to intercept. We did." In the years that followed, historians would debate who fired the final burst that killed Yamamoto, Lanfear or Barber. But for the men who flew that day, it didn't matter. What mattered was that they had carried out one of the most daring aerial assassinations in military history. and that they had done it against impossible odds. From that day forward, Japan's skies grew darker. Their commanders learned to travel in secrecy, to hide behind layers of deception. The invincible aura of the Imperial Navy was gone. As the war dragged on, the P-38 continued to serve from the Aleutians to New Guinea, from Burma to Italy. It flew faster, higher, and farther than almost any other Allied fighter of its time. And long after the guns fell silent, veterans still remembered its unique, haunting sound. The deep, twin-engine thunder that once echoed across the Pacific. A sound that, on one fateful morning in 1943, carried vengeance through the clouds.